today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
why is it your partner just doesn't seem to really hear what you're saying? Anyone who's in a marriage or in a long-term relationship has experienced this and probably will experience this. For some reason, they just seem to hear what they want to hear. It's a universal frustration. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. And today we're going to talk about why your partner just does not hear you, or maybe doesn't understand you, depending on how you're experiencing this. And we're going to do things a little differently today. I'm going to have at the end of this podcast, I'm going to have some tips on next steps you can take. So instead of just telling you all about why it is what it is, I'm going to give you some clues on baby steps you can take to helping yourself get heard, feel heard, and maybe even hear your partner. Just a hint that even though everyone experiences this frustration, anyone who's in a marriage or in a long-term relationship has experienced this and probably will experience this. It's a universal relationship frustration. This experience of you say one thing, and particularly if they're fired up, they tell you said something different, and you say, no, that's not what I said. I didn't say B, what I said was A. And they say, yeah, you just said B again. Hey, for some reason, they just seem to hear what they want to hear. It's a universal frustration. So we're going to talk about this, explore it. What are the roots of this? Why is this happening? Is it just that you married a moron? No, it's not. I promise you, because elephants don't marry giraffes, right? They are as emotionally intelligent as you are in some ways. There's always a balance. Yeah, what might actually be going on are they have some emotional filters from their past that are getting in the way. And you know that. Right? You know that they grew up with a mom who was diminutive of them, or a dad who was physically abusive, or whatever. Maybe it was something simpler. Maybe they just grew up in a household with constant criticism, or maybe they grew up in a household where there was no attention, physical or emotional. Everybody was just a free agent. You know that there's some circumstance to the way they grew up that impacts the way they hear things. You know that. But when you're in the fight, we call it here at Rich in Relationship, we often forget that. So let's talk about, first, what are these filters? Second, why is it that when we're in the fight, all right, we can't give them a little grace, or always give them grace? Maybe sometimes you give them some grace and sometimes you don't. Why is it we can't always be there for them, understanding, hey, this isn't about me? Okay, so let's break it down. I'm going to give you the boring psychological health professional model on this, all right? But I'm going to do it like that so we get through it really fast. Developmentally speaking, our programming, our unconscious mind is 80% of who we are, and that develops in the first 7 years of life. And it continues to develop. It's always looking out for us. It always wants our well-being. Here, I'm going to show you something. You see Clifford the big red dog back there? That is my unconscious mind, all right? So my unconscious mind is Clifford the big red dog. Why did I pick him as my symbol of my unconscious mind? Because Clifford the big red dog, he's a happy guy, but he's really big, and sometimes he just happens to step on a car or a bush, right? And he's like, oops. Right. And that's kind of how our unconscious mind is. Our unconscious mind really wants us to be happy. It really wants us to have joyful, healthy, fulfilling relationships. But every now and then it just kind of accidentally, because of its programming, steps on something. And that's what's happening with your partner, right? They have an unconscious mind. They grew up in a household where there were certain strengths and certain defects, right? We all have households with defects, period, the end. Nobody grows up in a perfect household. Period. Like, it just doesn't happen. There are levels. We'll talk about that another day. There's really messed up households and pretty good households, but even the pretty good households have some stuff going on. And we all get some negative programming, or another way to put it would be we develop strategies for dealing with those households from age 0 to 7 that we learn from our parents and from our siblings that help us to function in that household. That's probably the best way to put it. It helps us to function in our household. Then, as we grow up, Clifford the big red dog is still up there. He gets trained more and more. He learns new tricks, but it's all based on those basic strategies that we learned from 0 to 7. Those are like the foundation. And by the way, there is hope. Those strategies can be changed. Just because they happen at 0 to 7 doesn't mean we can't access them and reprogram them. But it takes some work, and we're going to get to that. All right, so we all have our basic operating system for those of you who are into computers, our basic operating system, whether it's Android or iOS, whether it's Windows or Mac, is laid in at 0 to 7. All right, then we go on in life, and they meet you. You meet them, you fall in love. Something about who you are is perfect for something about who they are. There's the opportunity for a partnership there. You come from somewhat different backgrounds, but you've each got an operating system. You've got one too. All right, that's the big hint. What happens once you get married is the commitment of marriage kicks in all of our strategies and trainings and understandings about what a partnership is that we learned in our family of origin. And the person that you married goes from being your lover who you're going to spend the rest of your life with forever, ever, they become someone else and you become someone else. So who you've become to your partner sometimes is their parent. Sometimes they become their parents dealing with you. They become the programming they learned about what a marriage should be from their parents. Or if they feel that they're being attacked in some way, their response is going to be a strategy that they learned in their childhood, and they're going to treat you as if you were one of the persons that they learned that strategy to deal with. All right, so that's the nature of the filter. The filter is strategies from our childhood. The filter is maybe there was some hurt or some sadness. I've had clients who lost a sibling, and we did work helping them to grieve and resolve and release that sadness. Or maybe they had sexual abuse, as teenagers or even as children that hasn't been faced and resolved because traumatic experiences tend to get locked into the psyche. So we've done a lot of work releasing that stuff. Your partner, and maybe you, have not only strategies and programming, but some old residual emotion that is in the way. And when your partner sees you as the attacker, you may not even be attacking them, by the way. You may just say something that looks like what they identify, what their strategy, their programming identifies as an attacker from their childhood. If you show up in a way that reminds them of that, their program goes off and they do whatever it is they do. They might fight with intensity and attack you. They might run away and hide, like just stonewall you. Or what are the options? Fight, flight, maybe they just go silent. They play dead. They just go silent. And just sit there and go, But whatever the reaction, they may have all three going on, by the way. It's not like everyone has one strategy for dealing with attack. If they perceive you as the attacker, it brings up all of their programming, all of their old emotions, and all of their filters. And so when you say to them, let's pick an example. I'll give you an example from my own life. What's a really good fight that we've had? A really good fight that we've had is, how come you don't want to have sex with me anymore? And my partner says, of course I want to have sex with you. What are you talking about? Why are you criticizing me? What's going on? Like, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out how we can be more intimate. Like I'm a guy, I have needs. And it just, on her side, it just gets worse until finally she says, well, I'm sorry you have needs. I have needs too, right? And her reaction is that I'm critical of her. Her reaction is that I'm not acknowledging her needs. Her reaction is that I'm attacking her. And I'm really just trying to express, hey, what's going on? I could do it in the gentlest way back in the past. We've worked through a lot of this stuff. Today we don't today we don't have that going on, if I'm completely honest. But this, in my past, my wife and I had this going on when our last child was born in particular. Um, Long story. All right. So why am I sharing something personal with you? You know, my social media people say I should only share client stories with you because part of what makes me an expert is not only have I worked with people who have these stuff going on, but I have worked through it myself. And so even though they say I shouldn't do it, I just don't believe that. I feel like you need to know that I'm a person too. You know, yeah, I'm a professional. Yeah, I'm trained. Yeah, I've worked with hundreds of people and I've got a huge success rate with couples. And the reason is I know where they're coming from personally. And I've resolved these issues, right? Much more powerful. So my reaction to that wasn't always as calm as I make it sound in this podcast. Honestly, when her stuff would come up, I would be like, why can't she freaking hear me? She just, and I would go to, she doesn't love me. She doesn't want to give it to me. Right. And so what happens is there's this dance where the two operating systems and the old emotions that are still present start dancing with each other. She's not really seeing me or my intention. My true intention is to be closer to her. It isn't just to do the deed. I love my wife. I want to be as close to her as possible. And I'm not seeing her intention. You know, her intention is also to be close with me. It's just that the way that I'm presenting has triggered a reaction that has triggered a reaction in me. Right. And we do this dance and it would get louder and louder and louder. And we would have the fight. And the fight is one where I'm like, damn, I'm going to straighten her out. I'm going to make her hear me. And she would have very much the same reaction. I'm not, you know, I've had one abusive husband. I'm not going to deal with I'm not going to let another angry man talk to me this way. Not that I was abusive, but it would trigger that in her. And we would have the fight. If you're having the fight, I'm going to suggest to you that this is the reason, right? It isn't just that they're not hearing you. It might be that you're also not really hearing them, not really understanding them. A fight that is very popular this time of year where people really don't hear each other is around money. I have a client who is in the middle of a money fight with his wife. He earns good money. He's an entrepreneur. He's a good businessman. He's created reasonable budgets for his household. She has not participated, even though he's invited her to. So she hasn't bought into these budgets. She has ideas about how money should be spent. And honestly, her ideas about how money should be spent are not about a bigger house or a Porsche or Ferrari. They're more about the kind of vacation she wants, who she wants to have them with, her family. She's actually in many ways doing what instinctively her job is as a mother, which is building emotional support, an emotional foundation, you know, not just in her household, but with their families through vacation time, through experiences together for their child. And so when he goes to her and says, we can't spend that much on this trip, she says, no, we have to. And they both become very entrenched and positioned. And they have the fight. And obviously, there's, you know, without giving away their family secrets, she feels she's being personally attacked for doing what her job is, what she feels intuitively her job is, what she was trained to do by her family. And he feels that she's not giving him what he wants, what his job is, which is to provide. And he can't provide for their future if they're spending all their money in the now. And that has a lot to do with the way he grew up and the lack of provision that he experienced as a child. And they have the fight. I'm going to win. You're going to lose. I don't trust you. No, I can't trust you. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I have a lot of clients who have that particular fight, by the way. I mean, this is not an unusual fight about money. It happens a lot this time of year. I had a lot of people reach out to me over the end of the summer who have been having this fight and who want to stop having it. And what I want you to get is if you're having this fight or if you've had this fight, it's because when you try to express your want, need, or desire, there's something about the way you're expressing it that is triggering your partner's filters. And when the filters come up, they see this much of you and they hear this much of you. What they're seeing and hearing when the filters come up is everything they learned when they were 7 years old, or maybe how it evolved. It might be when they were 14 or 15. It isn't just 0 to 7. 0 to 7 is foundational, but we build on that foundation. Our unconscious mind builds on that foundation. It gathers evidence for that foundation over time. And what you're supplying them with is further evidence. And what happens eventually is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We start to only see that which we are most afraid of. And that's why they can't hear you. And guess what? Sometimes you do it too. That's why you're having the fight. Or maybe you're spending your time avoiding the fight because of these filters. All right, so let's talk about how to break the cycle. Because what I've learned is people listen to the podcast not just to learn about what's going on, but they want some tools. I want to be really clear. It is very difficult, almost impossible, in fact, to let go of old emotional baggage, old hurts, frustrations, and sadness without the help of another human being. And let me tell you why. It is very often there's shame associated with those emotions. And the only way to expunge shame, to begin to expunge shame, is to air it out, right? Shame is when we have guilt about a situation, we feel irrationally responsible. Very often when people are abused as children, they irrationally feel responsible for it. They feel like because it's not unusual, by the way, when people are emotionally abused, physically abused, sexually abused as children, it's not unusual for them to equate love and attention with the abuse because it's the only way that parent really relates to them. So they don't like the abuse. The child does not like the abuse, but they equate it with love. And so on one level, they want it to happen because it's a form of attention. And they feel guilty about it. They feel guilty. They feel causal, even though they're not. It's completely irrational. Get that emotions are completely irrational. They make no sense sometimes. And so it makes sense that shame and guilt often are hidden. We don't want people to see our dirty laundry. And so the first step is to find someone that you can show your dirty laundry to and for them to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay. People do that. I'm telling you right now, if you're hearing this and I'm like ringing a bell with you, it's okay that maybe you've been inviting something that you recognize is not healthy for you in your life from your partner or maybe as a child you had that experience with a parent. It's okay. And you deserve so much more than that. You deserve something better than that. Now, let me speak to you as a survivor. We deserve so much more, and we can change that. But the first step is you got to share it with someone. You got to share it with someone. I'm not saying a professional, though professionals can be helpful. It might just be your partner. It might be a priest or a rabbi. You got to share it with someone, though. Someone that you feel safe with. Someone who, because this feels very secret, you feel will keep your secret. It can't be, you could, some people do this, go out on social media and just share it. Maybe that is actually a good way to cleanse it, but just get that anything you share on social media is going to follow you forever. It might be that you take baby steps on this. So step one, any kind of programming you have about something that you feel guilt or a little shame, or that you feel any secret that you have that's impacting your relationship, eventually you're going to need to air it out with someone. Maybe it may not be your partner, but with someone. You're going to need to air it out just so you can figure out what happened there and why, how is that thing that happened impacting your relationship. When it comes to the programming itself, the strategies or programming itself, your reaction or their reaction, well, let's talk about them first, because really, right, the title of this podcast is why they just can't seem to hear you. If you want them to hear you, you're going to need to get past their programming. And there are two great tools for this that you can Google. You may find them on our website, richinrelationship.com. Actually, I'm going to do that. You will find these tools on our website at richinrelationship.com. They're common mental health tools. I'm going to make sure these resources are available by the time this podcast airs. The first is something called I statements. All right. I statements are a way of expressing emotions as responsibly as possible. So our natural tendency as human beings is to say, you know, when I talk to you, let's go back to my example. When I talk to you about my needs for physical intimacy and you just push me away, you make me so mad and frustrated. I'm so frustrated. Why are you doing this to me? Right? That's kind of what I used to say. And what I learned to say was, you know, honey, I feel so frustrated when we're not physically intimate for weeks at a time because I love you and I want you in my life. And I want to have a personal experience, physical, spiritual, emotional experience of you. So you can hear the difference between those two, right? So first is I statements. Now they may still hear it as, by the way, they may still hear that as criticism. And you can, and your reaction, if when my wife reacted to that as criticism, which she did, by the way, my next step would be, hey, I'm just telling you that I want to be close to you and that I'm feeling frustrated and I'm not sure what to do. You know, what would you suggest? I would reassert that this is about me and my needs. This is about my feeling. My feelings being triggered by my needs, you know, and I want your help. And I want your help. Right? The fastest way to de-escalate that defensive reaction is I want your help. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes relationships are so enmeshed and the triggers are so enmeshed that even that won't work. And if you're in that phase, your relationship is in some, you definitely need some outside help. And by the way, if you and your partner want to schedule a complimentary call, we'll help you figure out what your next steps are, whether it's group or individual or couple work or whatever, and we'll help you find the right fit. But you're definitely going to need some help if you're at that stage. You are at a level of relational overwhelm at that point where there's no resolving it between the two of you. I'm going to do a whole episode on relational overwhelm next, because I think that's a great topic, like just to help you figure out where you are. If they are having a very intense reaction and they're saying that you're not listening to them, which is often the case in the fight, another tool that you can use is committed listening. And committed listening is really simple, but this tool will also be available on the Rich in Relationship website, richinrelationship.com. It's committed listening or empathetic listening or whatever. There's a lot of different names for this, but it basically involves looking for one fact and one feeling. So when my wife would react saying, you're just trying to guilt me into doing something I don't want to do, instead of reasserting my position, I would say to her, it sounds like you're a little angry and maybe a little scared because I've been expressing this need for intimacy. And she might say, yeah, that's it, exactly. But more likely what she would say is, no, that's not it. You know, what I'm saying is I'm totally overwhelmed and you're coming at me with another demand. We got this child in our life. We got these other kids in our life. I'm trying to work and you just want more from me. I can't give it right now. And then if I were practicing committed listening, what I'd say is, it sounds like you're really overwhelmed. And this maybe isn't such a good time for me to express this need for. Yes, that's it. And by the way, the ending of that is, did I get it? Not did I get it right, but did I get it? And on the front end, you want to say, it seems like, it sounds like, it looks like, depending on how they express themselves. So these tools with more details will be on the Rich in Relationship website. The most important thing here is that when they don't seem to understand you, that you check yourself. You want to pause and reflect. You might want to even step out, right? Because if you start to get upset that they just don't understand you, it's going to escalate and the fight is going to happen. You're going to want to think about, as you pause and reflect, their history or what's going on for them, that they feel like this, you're attacking them in some way, shape, or form, even if you don't think you are. And you're going to want to communicate vulnerably, which is what the I statements are about. And ideally, you want to address the pattern together. which is something we can help you with if you need help with that. I've got some amazing techniques. Uh, but let's not talk about that. The amazing techniques on the shelf for a second. We have a program to help people communicate better without conflict. It's very inexpensive. At the time that I'm speaking, it hasn't been formalized yet. And by the time you hear this, hopefully this program will be released. If not, to direct message me, and when it comes out, I'll let you know about it. But it's going to come out. It's going to be very inexpensive. It is just a basic communication package. Right? This is something that how Rich in Relationship really started. We started out as a communication-based company, helping couples to communicate without having the fight. We teach them how to identify the fight, how to de-escalate from the fight, and how to communicate in a way that feels safer. And then what we found was that we needed to help people with those old emotions and strategies. And so now we've developed techniques for those old emotions and strategies. But before you get to that, really, let's just figure out, let's work. We have this base program that just helps make it feel safer for you. So check that out. All right. That's enough out of me. I'm interested in any questions that you have, any comments that you have. As always, if you like what you're hearing, share it. Please subscribe. The focus of Rich in Relationship going forward is always going to be that we're going to throw you some tools, but just get that these tools will not fix the problem. They are just baby steps. And if you really want to fix the problem, for a lot of what we talk about on this podcast, you're going to need some kind of intervention, probably, most likely. I could be wrong. Let me know. Let me know if these things fix the problem. If they do, I'd love to be wrong. I would love to be able to just help people by doing this. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.